Hi, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck happening to the YouTube atheist community and conversational fun. So, should start with an apology. I was rather harsh and brutal to at least one person last night. Angela, anyway. It's catch me at the wrong moment, and yeah, I just don't have much patience. So anyway, so what can I say? Yeah, sorry. But beyond that, yeah, it wasn't a bad night. Kind of moved along okay, mostly. Seed pods. It's just getting cold out here. Anyway, I think I'll migrate indoors. Anyway, I figured I'd just get out to stop raining finally. So, yeah, it's better, but everything's wet. Yeah, I know you don't need those details, but you get them anyway. These grew rather tall this year. There's some nice brambles and such. Yeah, I was looking at old pictures of how nice it used to be here, and really do got to do some work on things. Anyway, so what else is there? Yeah, so there is a subject, I kind of want to get to, an overview, I suppose, so I'll do it in this video. What the hell? Because it's sort of in a few different videos mentioned pieces of it. Even Logic Rolls the Dice guy, who did a couple of interesting videos. He's been playing with different formatting, let's call it that, or something. Style, yes, different style, video presentation. So he had a little bit in the end of one of his videos that was just, a little bit chaotic, but interesting stylistically. All this jive kind of stuff in there or something. I don't know. Well, whatever. I won't even try to describe it. But anyway, you might want to go see that. Go find it yourself. Logic Rolls the Dice. Not complicated. Anyway, yeah, and so anyway, briefly in that video, he did talk sort of about the hard problem. Dealt a little bit with the idea that there's this thing, consciousness, and how do we put it in a category? How do we describe or define this thing? And does it have elements that are of any kind of special in terms of non-explainable or non-accessible? Let's say it that way. We don't necessarily know the truth of the mechanism, but we know what it probably is mechanistically, in a sense. I mean, we know what it's made out of. Like the eddy in a stream, we can't quite understand all the movement, but we can certainly understand what's causing it and how it manifests. And we can't document the phenomenon itself in terms of itemizing every little tiny bit of it, but we can understand it as a mechanism. We certainly understand the mechanism of consciousness. We know its origins. And so, anyway, so Matt and Professor Anton are playing a little bit with this also. They're not exactly describing it as the hard problem, but basically that's the subject. That there has to be a bigger story to the reality of consciousness. That would be Matt's argument. That there's more to the story than just an emergent or a property that is a consequence of the addition of a few more cells here or a few more cells there, or turning on the electricity. You flip a switch and it's on, flip the switch down, it's off. So I would argue that's the simplest evidence of the mechanical device. The very fact that we turn the electricity off and it shuts down. It doesn't exist anymore. We fiddle with just a couple of little tiny pieces of it and it disappears. It's a very finely tuned instrument at minimum. But again, the origin is it's hard to say what piece of evidence is the best piece of evidence, because there's so much evidence that this is a physical mechanism. Like I said, we know where it came from. It's evolved piece by piece, bit by bit, and the capacity it had probably started off minimalistically and grew and grew and grew. So it had a little kernel of an ouch to start with, a kernel of perception, of consciousness, and all that was amplified through progressive evolutions, you know, because it was advantageous to an organism to be able to do this perception, feel it, see it, sense it, and then react to the sensing, and to have this feedback mechanism. And feedback is probably an important element of this. It's not even so much feedback in there's different ways of looking at feedback. Feedback is like, you know, you ask the audience, how'd I do? You know, that's feedback in a way. And then there's feedback where it's a infinite loop, and the thing just keeps feeding on itself. It just keeps admitting its consumption. So like the microphone squealing, you know, because of the feedback of the sound going out of the speakers and back into the microphone, and into the speakers and back out of the microphone, and I mean out of the speakers and into the microphone kind of syndrome. And that we're likely, the brain is a manifestation of a loop like that. Consciousness, perception. And that's what creates the theater that we exist in, the synthesized reality. And that's sort of what it is. It's just a synthesized reality. It's an illusion. It's a manufactured phenomenon that does take place in the brain. It doesn't take place over there or over there. It takes place in our brains. It's where the thing happens, the event, the function. And it's a function. It's not a, you know, it's not a thing found in the world. It's not a thing consumed out of the universe. It's not a thing that's injected. It's just a byproduct of the acquisition of the necessary parts to create this mechanism that creates this feedback. And I just sort of say it's an illusion, like the sense that it just creates the atmosphere for the production. It creates the stage, it creates the seats in the audience, it creates the orchestra pit, it creates the screen, it creates the projector, it creates the whole mechanism of the theater that is our consciousness. And it's all created in a virtual or a non-real place, by the byproduct of the function. It's just a byproduct of the arrangement, of the organization, and the communication between these programs, these ordered processes. And so I think a fundamental part of it is the idea that we have a split brain, that we probably have a lot of splits in our brain. A lot of parts to the mechanism is the idea of this feedback, that one brain, one element, one section, one piece does one thing, and then the other pieces do things, and that the end-all process is the function in the end. And just as your kidneys do one thing, your liver does a different thing, your pancreas does something else. I mean, they're all doing an individual thing, but the collective is keeping the whole organism fed and sufficiently nurtured. So that came up too. Vispuro showed up last night, and we did talk about the consciousness too. And another point to be made is that our consciousness is not the same. We're not the same mechanism as the stuff we're made out of. The living things that we're made out of are very different than we are. We're the byproduct of the organization of living things. It's like we're the ant colony walking and talking, and it's made up of the individual ants. So the life of us is not really, we're not the thing alive in the traditional sense of a living organism with a DNA molecule replicating. We're a byproduct of the organization or the arrangement of living things. And so it's a different, we have the same word for a living thing that has organs made out of living things, that has a whole network of enslaved or, required to function in a particular way, things designed to basically now conform to the maintenance of one DNA molecule, your seed, so to speak, projection into the future, and all the individual molecules, like drone bees or something, don't have any personal biological evolution. It's not really, I don't want to get that far afield, but it's just, I think it's just important to recognize that there's nothing, the similarities end. There's single cell organisms. They're not really, they're not organisms in the sense that we're organisms. Their organs aren't made out of living things. Their organs are just physical membranes or physical structures, made out of chemistry. And cells might have complex, minute structures, but those structures aren't doing anything that you could compare to neurology. You could compare to a brain with 100 billion neurons. There's no correlation, there's no similarity. There's no reason to think that a brain that is so dependent on all this complexity, it's having a sufficient number of neurons, a lot of them, to create the illusion of perception, of consciousness, the sense of it, the experience of it. That's all you can call it. Is you're definitely experiencing it, in the sense of the word experience, as we've defined it, is what we have to use to describe what happens when you're aware of a happening. You're sort of experiencing it. So we're experiencing consciousness, but it's not it's not something we're revealing in reality. It's something we're synthesizing as a electrical and chemical reaction to reality. But it's all synthesized in the brain. It's all just an illusion. It's a fake theater it creates. It's not a real one. It's not. There's no real projector. There's no real screen. There's no real anything in that sense. It's just an illusion of perception. But as Einstein would say about time, it's one hell of an illusion. So it's not really relevant in any way besides as a fact. It's a fact that it's an illusion. It's a fact that it doesn't have tangible correlates that you could sit there and say, oh, that's where it makes the projector and that's where the screen, it doesn't have physical structure. But it synthesizes the end result function. It synthesizes the effect of that being the happening, even though what's making it happen is just the exchange of electricity back and forth and chemistry. Yeah, which still, just isn't enough of an answer, and I know it's not enough of an answer for some people, to just say it's a byproduct of a process, and certainly it could be synthesized theoretically out of stuff that wasn't necessarily alive, and because it's just electricity and chemistry in the end, and it doesn't need the formation of nucleuses, and it doesn't need cellular structure, and it doesn't need all that stuff to create the illusion of consciousness. And again, it's just this, the idea of it being, something being synthetic, something being, it's almost like that little bubble, like there would be a bubble where you put text in it, or words, or thoughts. That's actually what's happening. Our whole conscious experience is happening in those bubbles. It doesn't happen in real place. It happens as just a byproduct of function. Again, I can say that over and over again. It's not going to mean too much to people who want you know, to keep trying to find a tangible bit, to find something material, you know, the material of consciousness, the ether, the sparks, the energy, the whatever crap they want to find, the thing that is consciousness, as if it's a something that is something, and it's nothing more than the eddy in the stream. You know, yes, the eddy in the stream is more understandable. You can see it's just a swirling of water, but the truth is that the manifestation of our consciousness is just a certain kind of swirling of chemistry and electricity, and you'll create this fake perception that, oh, I'm feeling something, and the feeling has a qualitative element to it and all that. It's just the way the brain is interpreting. It's the way it's see, it's the relative comparison. You say, well, what's the thing you're comparing it to? What's the that's not the right word to use. But I mean, we experience it in the sense that we know that we go unconscious. You know, we go to sleep or this, or we're whacked in the head or whatever. Something happens and we know it turns on and off. So we can sort of see that it is just a function. It's just a mechanical device that can be shut off like a computer. And computers do fancy things. I mean, they do elaborate things. And you know, they just don't make theaters, because theaters require, like I said, evolution had the tool, which is time, to take something that was just a spark of perception, the spark of I'm awake, awakeness, a tiny, tiny little bit of awakeness, and it could amplify it, you know, through millions and hundreds of millions of years of evolution. It could amplify that little noise, that little sense of something, because it would be conducive to this process of creating an organism that's capable of learning and you know, having conflicting and the conflict of having an immediate reactive function and a with the advantage of saying that yes, if you have enough time, you can think about it before you act. So now we're not reactive, we're reactive in the sense that you can spend a minute processing the circumstance and deciding on a behavior, or you can spend 5 minutes, or you can maybe, if you have enough time, spend 5 days contemplating what the right thing to do is, where organisms previous to this mechanism could only react like a robot. They can only do what the program has written in it, and there's no option of you know, regulating how much processing takes place. There's nothing regulating, it's just one reaction, and it's always the same reaction to the same circumstance, where, you know, because of this feedback mechanism, the brains can communicate with each other theoretically endlessly, and in terms of processing a circumstance and coming up with behavior. So the advantage of that was so substantial that, you know, mammals basically took over the earth in many respects as the big organisms, and because brains were a huge advantage, because doing that extra processing of the environment, extra thinking was a good thing. So that's really the only reason why it exists, is that thinking is likely to have a positive effect on behavior. Alright, so I didn't really get to it still. I mean, like I said, I can just feel the inadequacy of saying it's an illusion. I've become comfortable with the word. A year ago I wasn't comfortable with it, but I'm comfortable with it now, because it really just, it doesn't matter that it's an illusion. It doesn't matter that it's completely just synthetic communications inside a CPU or something. The fact is that it creates such a perfect illusion, such a rich illusion, that we just can't mistake it for not for being something other than real. We can't possibly exist as being conscious and having this happening, this experience happening right before me. Me talking, me hearing, me feeling, me sensing. I just can't possibly not say this is real. It's such a good illusion. But it's just an illusion. It's just a manufactured fake reality that my brain has created a synthetic reality inside here, inside this skull. The brain has created a synthetic model of the world, and it put a me in it. And that's all it did. It put it created a fake world so it could inject a fake me in it as a feeling, thinking thing. And even though all of that is mechanical and deterministic as the rest of the mechanical and deterministic universe, it feels entirely different because it doesn't have to obey the same rules. It mimics the same rules because it needs to be coherent to reality to be useful to me. I need to think gravity is gravity, and I need to know that trees are solid and all that stuff. Or if I was an animal, I'd end up trying to run through trees or something because I'd think I wouldn't recognize their materiality. So it obeys the same rules as reality in many of the confinements and restraints, but it's not made out of reality, and it could potentially be completely delusionary. And we see that in people. We see people jump out of the window because they think they're Superman, they can fly. So clearly there's times when the reality your brain is creating becomes completely not consistent with the actual world you're living in, and you get called insane and such. So anyway, this is just way too much of a video. I didn't want to make it a video, but you know, there's just so little news in the atheist community that there's just no point in talking about personalities or things that are happening because there's just so little happening. It's just the same old characters, and we're doing the same old thing. And you know, we've got to just expand on that. I think, you know, me and Old Fan are trying to do that. You know, trying to come up with these ideas of different ways of doing this thing. Rational access guys, you know, with a little bits. Everybody's trying to make an effort to create some kind of better theater. You know, a better synthesized version of human interaction. That is both engaging and compelling and interesting, and but is also relevant. Isn't just noise. You know, isn't just belly rubbing. That actually has something to do with, you know, extracting some sort of truth and reality out of our interaction to enhance and you know, better perfect. You know, make more perfect our understanding and the way we communicate our understanding. The vocabulary we use to describe the categories and properties that it all just falls into. So anyway, I think I've done enough. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else that needs mentioning. So anyway, yeah, you know, keep poking at it and see what happens. So till next time, and such. Insufficient button hitting. Yeah, I gotta